Good morning. Every good origin story starts with adversity. Peter Parker was a socially awkward victim of bullying who lived with his aunt and uncle after his parents died. Anna Marie Laveau, who you might know as Rogue, accidentally put the first boy she kissed into a coma. Bruce Wayne's parents were murdered in a mugging. Steve Rogers contracted polio. Tony Stark had shrapnel lodged in his chest, moving closer and closer to his heart. You get the idea. But do we remember them for their struggles? No. We celebrate their unique spidey senses, their spandex-wearing, crime-fighting alter egos, their super strength that saves entire nations, their iron suits that render them near invincible. Yet, they wouldn't have become those heroes without the hardships they endured. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I, too, am a superhero. I know. Don't worry, I'll be signing autographs after chapel. My origin story reminds me of Marvel's X-Men. If you're unfamiliar with the lore, rather than experiencing a spectacular nuclear event that renders them superhuman, X-Men were merely humans born with a genetic anomaly, or mutation, that gave them incredible abilities. Like Rogue, who I mentioned earlier, she has the ability to absorb the memories, physical strength, and superpowers of anyone she touches. Unfortunate for her first boyfriend, but cool superpowers nonetheless. For this reason, they're often referred to as mutants in the comic books and the movies. Mutant may sound like a negative term in our universe, but what I love about X-Men is that they're really thought of as the next step in the human evolutionary process. They reclaim the word mutant with pride. Non-mutants are Homo sapiens. Mutants are considered Homo superior. I find that framing empowering. My mutations, or my differences, make me awesome. My genetic anomaly, aside from giving me awesome red hair, gave me anxiety. It wasn't totally random. My mom has powers too. She has bipolar disorder. That's where my adversity comes in. Even though she loved me a whole lot, she didn't really have control of her superpowers when I was growing up, which had a big impact on my development. Children need to feel safe and secure when they're developing, and one of the primary ways they feel that is through their connection with their parents or guardians. My own powers started showing up when I was in high school. At first, they were pretty similar to your average teenage mood swings, but eventually my lows got a little lower than the average teen. To try to protect myself, I was a very controlled person. I followed the rules, I didn't make waves, I controlled my environment as much as possible so that I didn't have to be afraid of the what-ifs. My what-ifs were probably the real confirmation that I was special. My superpowered brain would approach every decision-making opportunity by playing out every single possible outcome for every choice I could make. Basically, I could tell the future in every alternate universe imaginable. Cool, right? It worked the same way for relationships. Friends, teachers, parents, people I had crushes on. Before I could speak to them, or let's be real, in the early 2000s I was mostly writing to them on AOL Instant Messenger, I would play out every possible way that conversation could go. Analyze the risks and rewards of any choices, and go with the one that was most likely to keep myself in their good favor and cause the least upset. Some call this people-pleasing. I call it mind control. Potato, potato. But like any mutant who hasn't met Professor Xavier yet, using these powers wasn't going super well for me or the people around me. I cried a lot. Decisions that should have been quite simple, like what homework assignment to do first or what to order for dinner, took me forever. I had a hard time processing constructive criticism. In social situations, I often ended up saying nothing instead of risking saying the wrong thing. So I didn't really feel like anyone actually knew me. I wasn't quiet. I just had a lot of minds to read and futures to check out before I could say anything useful. Because my superpowers manifested in ways that, from the outside, looked a lot like a normal, emotional teenage roller coaster, I probably could have gone on a while without knowing I was special. Ultimately, I did well in school, I had a few close friends, and kept up with my responsibilities. Of course, inside my head, I felt very, very different. Things felt hard, and I wasn't sure anyone would ever understand me. Luckily, my parents suggested I try going to therapy before I head to college, if not to address any personal mental health issues, at least to talk through my mom's diagnosis and how it had impacted me. That was a real turning point for me. For the X-Men, once their powers started to manifest around puberty, they were sent to the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, founded by Professor Charles Xavier. Not to mix metaphors, but for the Harry Potter fans in the room, this was basically Hogwarts, but for mutants. And Professor X was Dumbledore. Anyway, I wouldn't say any one therapist qualifies as my Professor X. I think just therapy as a whole is my Professor X. In other words, talk therapy helped me to hone my superpowers into strengths, rather than continue to see them as a danger or a weakness. In college, I started to have trouble maintaining friendships long term, especially with women. My unbridled powers had run rampant in my brain. Imagine, a mind-reading human travels into the future of every dimension and decides that at some point in every possible outcome, humans will disappoint her and leave her wounded. That was me. I would start friendships, and then one negative interaction would send me spiraling towards the belief that I was ultimately going to be abandoned by them, and I would just see myself out before I could get hurt. Any sign of someone being upset, uncomfortable, offended, angry, I'm out. I continued seeing a therapist off and on in college, but I really buckled down and committed to it during my senior year. Professor X helped me gain self-awareness, drawing connections between my childhood experiences and contemporary struggles, and developing mindfulness practices that allowed me to separate myself from my emotions. Professor X didn't remove or repair my genetic mutation. They taught me how to use it. Essentially, they taught me how to understand my powers, which in turn allowed me to control them. Now, I don't want you to imagine the one-and-done meeting of Mr. Incredible with Edna Mode, in which she presents him with the exact perfect supersuits ready-made for his entire family. Professor X's methods are not one suit fits all. It took years at Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters before Cyclops wasn't accidentally burning his classmates with his optic blasts on a regular basis. To be fully honest, I still visit Professor X for night classes every couple weeks. Being a superhero is a full-time job. And yes, it takes a lot of work and time and strength. But now I recognize my triggers. I self-soothe and I recover more quickly when my powers get out of control. I know my limits. I'm quicker on my feet thanks to Professor X's regimented training. I have refined my once stunted communication skills to become an active listener and a sincere, direct communicator. I can employ my mind-reading skills precisely the right amount to be gifted in fostering deep empathy for someone's experience without following it down the rabbit hole of what-ifs. Seeing into other dimensions has made me a better actress, musician, and artist because it stretched my brain's capacity to imagine what others feel. I no longer feel like a mutant with something to hide. I'm one of the X-Men. I'm a superhero. But as Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. If Iron Man put on a suit and then sat on his couch and watched TV, or Batman hopped in the Batmobile and drove to 7-Eleven, the Avengers, and crime would still be rampant in Gotham City. The heroes we know and love, after learning how to use their powers, turn back around and use them to overcome adversity. So, hi, I'm Laura Kornichuk, and my alter ego is Miss K. When I'm in the suit, you might spot me supporting others in their quest for healthy communication and relationships, or mentoring young mutants with newly discovered powers. I nerd out on matters of psychology and sociology and share the knowledge of the world with the world in digestible ways, so that more humans and mutants alike have an understanding of mental illness. I fight alongside others like me to end the stigma. And I wouldn't be able to do these things without my own origins, without a difficult maternal relationship and my anxiety. Those are hard things, but they make me who I am. And I'm a superhero. Thank you.